Well, good afternoon. I am Dr. Contrast, and we are live. I really appreciate the information here, gang. Welcome aboard, Dakota and Terrace. Going to be a very intriguing day here, as I said on the actual title coming into the program today. It's a very interesting set of circumstances, and in all sincerity, with a lot of respect here, I'm going to keep this very simple and straight to the point. Today is status report day. What I did since last week's stream, I'm putting some pieces together and going a little further with some of the development of this hand tool from Empathy. I gathered all the information up, some of the initial empathy sketches, some of the initial overlays, some of the thumbnail sketches, some of the ideation studies we've gone through over the last 3 series, and shipped them off to the manufacturer. And we're glad to say that we're waiting on some input from them, which I think will be very favorable. I keep going back to the primary element that we're looking at here. By the way, Doc, I'm currently watching from my aunt's home in Scotland. Hey, how about that? Whereabouts in Scotland? And Terrace, your grandmother's home? Whereabouts? That's really cool. Shout out to you. That's pretty cool. How about that? I will just wait for your response here. But again, I just want to make sure today that we don't confuse the issue here. India. Oh, hey, welcome aboard, 9636. Great to have you on board here, and I hope you picked up some of the earlier streams. If not, I'll maybe go through a review here today a little bit to catch you up to speed there, 9636. Again, thank you so much for coming on board here. But I think the interesting thing was, for me today, was number one. The number one thing is, and I really appreciated this sincerely, the input we got from the first session on this whole empathy program was terrific. We got some great input, some good likes. We did a series of empathy strikes to start the process, and then from there we went in some overlays and tear them down, and we sent those out for evaluation. In Fife, how about that? That's really cool. Tell her I said hello and give her a big hug. That's really cool to know. So thanks very much, Antares. But again, back to the real issue for me today, and I want to be very transparent here. I'm not going to go any further with the sketch rendering work because I'm waiting for some information from the client base to really make sure that we're getting some good impact here, and I think we will. Because I keep going back to the fact that when this whole program came to us, or to me individually, I really want to make sure that we were on the right wavelength. And I made my comment to them was, in fact, their comment to me was, we're looking for something that's shockingly outside the box that will literally transform the marketplace. So on that premise, we went right out there on a really huge tangent and said, okay, let's go really deep into this thing and take it right off the edge here, off the radar, and do some really interesting thing. And I think the thing we're looking for is the interruption here of the product that's out there now, like hand drills. Very, very clumsy in some cases. I'm not criticizing the actual job that they do, but they're really overdone, I think, from a weight factor and so forth. You brought that up, Terrace, last time we chatted last week about the fact that they're clumsy to work with. So the whole pursuit from week 1, which was 3 weeks ago, was to develop a whole new set of interruptive sketches or concept studies that they could look at and evaluate. And again, their comment, again, in addition to the fact that they wanted an interruption, a whole new look at this project was to simply say, we want something that's going to be a real shocking change of pace for about maybe 5 to 10 year window out, and we can take the time to look at the technology, some of the things we have to deal with, the materials and technology, manufacturing systems to make this thing come to pass. So that's all an encapsulated session here, but again, for you 9636, we sent the empathic sketches, and I don't know if you saw the empathic sketches or not. If not, let me know, and I'll bring them up on the screen and tell you how this whole thing started. From that point of view, the empathy sketches were done very, very quickly and rapidly. And I've said this before a million times, so forgive me saying it again. The whole concept of empathy is the function of that is to open up the mirrors and the windows of our imagination and teach us a whole new way to think about surface development, about detail and form. It's a universal, extremely powerful creative tool, and it's not discussed. And it's a sad situation because I think it's still one of the greatest elements given to mankind about developing new ideas. So all that to say that I'm going to go through a real quick run here today on status report to give you a heads up on certain things that are coming along here. But I want to go back and review just a little bit here. This is where it all started from that initial concept here we looked at from empathy. And correct me if I'm wrong here too, folks, that those of you who are tuning in. One of the things that I thought was really unique about this was we came back with a simple situation where this became a really interesting element. We came up with the fact that maybe this whole thing has a bit of a rotating head on it. Maybe it doesn't come, for example, packaged in, for example. Let me go back here for a minute. This is our enemy. This is what we're trying to really facelift and change. There's something about this. Now we can keep that barrel in, and that might be part of the process. But the problem with this is it's so massive and so vertical, so huge. It only works in one dimension. If you go sideways, you're really restricted to space and allocation of material. So it's very difficult to work with here. So my point, for example, last week, once we brought this example in, was to take some of this thing and just literally actually eliminate, if we get that much mass out of it, and then maybe we can reconfigure this whole area up on top with some very unique, innovative technology and materials and manufacturing processes, boy, we've got a real home run. So that's the task. I mean, there's a lot of weight here. This whole battery pack and then the handle and the power source up on top. Why can't that all be condensed into a very simple shape that could be managed piece? And also, from last week, the conversation I had with some of our clients here, I've got some messages out to people I work with in the manufacturing side of life about potential power sources. What kind of things are out there now that we can kind of develop a little further and seek into to kind of implant this in this process of this new hand tool. So they're looking at certain things I'm looking at. The one that I'm really looking at is hydrogen might be a possibility. It could be a very interesting thing. Electromagnetics, all those things are going to lump into the final set of circumstances we put together for this product. Also materials. An international program here. I've done a lot of materials work from automotive manufacturing. 3 different sources are looking at ways that we kind of develop a new, maybe a malleable form or a malleable surface or a whole new hybrid of a surface and begin to work with this thing. And I think one of the things that's really kind of unique to me, while I ramble on here, is one of the aspects I think of this tool could be a really interesting element. It's not only does the head travel, but also the actual body is malleable. It changes surface. You can actually reform it, so you kind of contour, maneuver it into certain areas where the whole process can become part of the whole problem here, and solve that problem of being maybe too heavy, but just the right height, just the right scale. All those elements are brought into the fact. Thus the reason to send that information out last week to the manufacturer, the empathy sketches, the overlays, the thumbnail studies, all the things we've done thus far into the whole process. Now we're going to go back and review just a moment here. And I still believe with all my heart that the conceptual side of this whole thing has got to come down to this. The power source is going to be important, obviously. Secondly, it's going to be malleable. Is it adaptive? Can we actually change its shape? And it can actually morph. Third element, it's wearable. Can we wear it? We talked about that last week as well. When you put this all together, does it have to have a handle? That's called cold mold or the way it's done today. But is there something you can actually move into and grip that thing and hold it like you do, for example, another like a steering wheel? Very interesting how that could work. We did that sometime years ago with Corvette, where we actually had the instrument panel come up, and out of that came this whole idea. We hold the whole idea of just moving and holding this thing, and using pressure changes in your hands could be very, very valuable. It might be a little clumsy, but to look at that as a possibility is one of the things we're investigating. Rotation. This whole idea of having a rotating head that actually moves instead of being static in one place, it actually moves along a pivot or an arm system was really valuable. And I think, Antares, we got a note here, that would be intriguing. Having not just a moving head, but a possible body, but a posable body that could come by. Yeah, I think that's the idea. It's that combination of a malleable form in addition to a pivotal or an orbiting system that kind of takes care of that drilling system here. So, and last but not least, it can work in a horizontal mode or a vertical mode. That's one of the key things about this whole process. Those are the conceptual objectives that I sent along with the material to get this evaluated. So this is where we were initially. Again, notice some of the forms here, for example, this isn't horizontal, and this isn't horizontal, but this is Antares study that we picked up from one of the empathic sketches. You remember that, Antares? And Dakota, this was yours. So what we did was we took the thing and overlaid a little bit, and the initial empathy sketch, rather, and overlaid it and got these results. And then when you rotate these, look what happens. It's got a very interesting form to it here. This might be a little bit clumsy. We might want to take that form and maybe open it up a little bit more and engulf this whole process, this whole head. Same with this. This is going to be part of the same process, almost one shape, but that whole area is very spherical and actually moves itself. So that can go up and down that pivot line, which is right in there. We might change the radius on this to make that work. All these things I'm talking about today and looking at this overview here and this status report will be taken care of in sketch rendering form next week when we start to get some feedback in from the client base. Which way are we going with this thing? And I'm fully confident. In fact, I'll bet you a big steak dinner they're going to give us a green light to go all the way. It's going to be really interesting to see because I know the people very well. They respect what I do, and we're working with them. That whole thing, that whole idea of having a rotary ball of some sort could be really cool, I think, Dakota. So again, there's a lot of mystery here. There's a lot of loose ends out there, but I think that's where we want it. I don't want to get to a situation where we just kind of settle on, oh, there's a nice design. Let's illustrate it and render it and finish it. The whole idea of us interacting with one with another, which I really, again, greatly respect, is the fact that you're giving input to me and I'm putting it back in the form and actually kind of addressing those issues. That's invaluable. I've never intended this whole project to be a one-man show. I think the more input you have as certain individuals coming in and looking at it is absolutely phenomenal, really cool to work with. So let me put this aside for a moment. That becomes, those two, both Antares and yours, Dakota, were the primaries that motivated the next set of little studies we did last week. And I'm just, again, review. That's where we were. Then the next thing we did was this. We came back in, I said, I just took a piece of newsprint and went through the whole process again of doing something like this, where we actually got into a series of thumbnail sketches where it's interesting that, notice I started looking at this whole idea of rotating. It rotates both north and south and then east and west, so it has a universal pivot. That, to me, is a real salesmanship tool and priority to get this thing really moving in the right direction for design. I'm not really happy yet with some of the grip systems and some of the body form around it, but again, looking at that basic theme, how do you make it work? Does this look too, I can't find the right term, but that floating sphere, is it too obvious? Is it too inanimate? Does it really fit the paradigm we're looking for? I'm not sure yet. I mean, I'm just looking at certain things we're looking at there, but rather daring to be great. Yeah. I should remember that. Yeah, let's dare to be great, and I'll give that the best shot I can. I've been trying for 50 some odd years, haven't succeeded yet. So, nonetheless, yeah. But the idea is to get that form, something like that it begins to move and not be stiff or rigid, but actually transfers itself and travels on a track or an element of a gearing system of some sort that we can kind of look at once my friends come back with this mechanical engineering stuff. It could be really cool. Again, front elevation, and then another variation, but now down below, this starts to take on some interesting form, where it's almost like a shoe iron and a D-grip. Still not happy with that. This one was it, but this is the one that I thought, that could be inspiring. Now, it's a bit simple. It's almost like a horseshoe here. But again, maybe the travel's too much, but the actual unit itself would rest right here. Let me do this. Let me grab a pencil here real quickly, or a pen. The actual unit would rest here. This shape will come around and become right through here like this. This becomes the actual capture right here. That guy is paramount. That's where it is at rest. At that position right there at rest, it travels up along this track, both north and south, and also by the way, the weight in the front elevation, very thin, very slim, but it also, when you turn it, it does the same job. So it's easy to get into areas that are difficult to really compress or find space to work in. So again, I'm looking at these sketches, for example, this family, for just a moment, go back to this. This family, just as a reference start, is this where we want to go? Yes. Secondly, taking that same concept, being a little more pure in terms of, just be spherical. I'm not sure if that's the right way to go yet. Can we shroud it? Can we protect it a little bit and see what we come up with? Let's see what happens with that. But I think I don't want to commit myself to a series of sketches here or studies until we get that feedback from the corporation. Once we get that and we get a green light, it's all, and we're going to go full speed ahead and really get into a lot of challenging situations. And I think when the end game is played, the intent for me is to challenge them to the point of view where it's going to be a head puzzler. How do we do this? How do we get there? That's the intent. The intent for me is to be so pervasive and so out there in left field and so advanced that it's going to take them time to develop this. That's the whole key. Anything else to me would be a failure. I don't want yesterday's vanilla. I want a whole new flavor. So, and again, that comes back to the disruption. And please forgive me. I'm not being selfish or egotistical. And that's the whole idea about the whole concept behind this whole program. Again, number one, it's a market buster. It's innovative. It's disruptive. It's universal. It's a whole set of circumstances that replaces what this guy does, which is really kind of it's a Me Too phenomenon. Everybody does the same thing. I want us to be so unique that, hey, where did that come from? That's really cool. So let's put that aside for a moment. So as that series of sketches, let this over for a moment here, and we get this out of the way. Then from that family of sketches, I went into some of these studies. And a little bit further, just some real quick little ballpoint pen sketches where we take advantage of. They're a little bit faint, so forgive me. I don't know if that thing is picking up, or can you see the shape or not? Almost donut-like, with a very soft grip in here. We could open that up again. Notice this is where the travel is. This is where ground zero would be. In a case like this, coming off that center line, we come right in through here. That ground zero would be right here. Now, if we come back and develop that and shroud that a little bit, does that come up the top here and shroud that so the whole thing is kind of hidden? And it doesn't look so obvious as if it were a sphere of some sort, or an attachment that doesn't look like it belongs to the form itself. And I'm not so sure that would not be a good thing to have, that it's so obviously unique. That's neat. There's an orbit out there, or a sphere out there, that actually travels horizontally and vertically, vertically and horizontally. That would really be cool. So there's one sketch to work with here. That was the first study. I want to go back here and put those off to one side here. Then another one where this is a little bit more vanilla-ish, but it actually embodied this whole thing. But I think the thing about this that kind of intrigued me was maybe we reverse that the actual form goes the other way, and it's actually a parabolic sweep of some sort, and the head system travels on the inside track, but just not as expansive. This one's a little bit too common. I didn't care for that at all. It's almost going back to almost like a Dremel of some sort. It doesn't have enough guts to it. But again, variation on the theme. This can have some merit if we put it into a context. Maybe that's a full circle of some sort, and that thing orbits around it like the other sketch we just showed you. That could be an interesting part of the process as well, where we actually take this shape and develop it somehow. Maybe it's just that pure. Maybe it's more vertical. I don't know. Those are the things that are going to come once the input comes back from the corporation. So that's 1-to-1. The second sketch, I wasn't too enamored with that one at all. That's an attempt, but some of the things, for example, like the grip, a little bit clumsy. The idea here, I forgot to bring this up. The idea behind this one too was that this handle would actually move up and begin to fill the rest of the space, so it's actually portable. The idea behind that, I didn't explain that very properly. But this could be abbreviated up on top. But this handle can kind of stretch out and give you the scale you need once you have your hand space to work with to get into certain very tight areas to work with. So another innovation to think about. Does that handle move in addition to the actual body of the form? Interesting. I think it's an interesting discussion whether to learn it in the obviousness or the sphere to style it. Yeah, I think that's going to be a real enigma, I think, Antiris. Do you keep it pure as a spherical form, or do you actually embellish it somehow to make it? Now, does that mean we have to come back to something like this? I don't know. That might work, but I still think the idea of having that very, very simple shape that actually travels, and whether it's spherical or even elliptical of some sort or vertical of some sort, ovoid, that could be interesting too. So all those elements are out there to explore, which is why we're going through this status report here today. And again, for those of you just coming in, for example, who are just tuning in for the first time, this is a status report basically letting you know that all the information for the last 3 weeks has been forwarded out to the manufacturer. We're waiting for an impact of some sort or direction to take. And we're waiting for that. And then once we get that this week, hopefully, or early part of next week, we'll start moving again into some sketch rendering things based on their input about yays and nays. So that's why we're holding on the fort here today. I certainly don't want to be rude and go into sketches prematurely until we get some really good input from where the guidelines are and where the borders are to work with this thing. So once again, Antiris, an interesting discussion whether to lean into the obviousness of the sphere or to style it. Yeah. I don't know. I think that's gonna be a real issue. That's a real perplexing situation. If you work with the sphere, there are ways to shroud that inside a cavity. It can be kind of concealed a little bit. It can be kind of neat to work with. So that's yet to be determined. There's another study. Pretty obvious. I just don't. Sometimes you go through some sketches, for example, that'll work well. Some that are just kind of me too, ho hum. These fall in that family. They're just a little bit too indirect. I just don't. Some of the shapes, if we expand on a little bit. Still working with a sphere to kind of get that to function. I'm really not sold. I'm sold on that, but I'm not really sold on the idea of coming back to like a pistol grip or a D-grain grip of some sort to make this thing function. In the number 4, gets a little more interesting now. Now we start to take advantage of this whole idea of having this thing sitting up on top of a pocket that actually pivots back and forth, it swivels, and does the same thing. Not bad here, but again, pretty obvious in the handle, and again with this. I think what I did here, to my own detriment, is I started to fall in love with, hey, I've got this thing that moves, and all of a sudden you put a handle next to it, and it just doesn't seem to fit right. It's got to look more, for lack of another term, more integrated, more secretive, and more an element of surprise. And I don't think I found that yet. So I'm hoping for your input, Dakota, and the 9636 to give me kind of some direction. Feel free to speak up. I mean, if you see some things that look like they're interesting, great. If you think they're dumb or stupid, man, fire away. I need to hear those kind of things from you to help me through the process. This is not a one-man show. It's a team effort here. So, again, the idea of having this thing move to me was from last week, Terrace, was really that could be really cool. Where you've got a body that is malleable and shifts, but a performing head that does things that just doesn't sit there statically. You can actually move it around. So that's number 4. There's another little study in this orbit system. Again, look how forced these sketches. I'm not happy with them, and I'll be very candid with you because I think I fell back on this old idea. Yeah, this is really cool, but then again, the very common and clumsy-looking shapes around it didn't really complement the actual form itself. So I don't know. We'll just have to go back and look at this thing. But the idea of having this thing rotate both and then again, north and south and east and west could really be really cool. So there's sketch number 5. Then number 6 was the last thing we did. And I thought, like it's pretty common, but at least this grip started to make some sense. It didn't have the same look as the actual product. So let's put this side by side. It wasn't the same look as that, but it still looked pretty common. Now, do we make more out of this? Do we actually take that shape and then this could be the platform right here, for example. This platform could work really well. That might be the platform area from here to here. It's just kind of spot. That's where that thing might travel. And then also, if you turn the handle a certain way with adding more beef into this guy, let's say we took that thing, and let me find a bell point pin here. Yeah, there it is. If we took that same shape and maybe opened that up a little bit and took that same form and wrapped it in here like that, and just kind of softened that off a little bit, and we got that to kind of blend in there, that could be interesting. This portion could be the part that's much more malleable. I don't know. Again, what if? Yeah, Dakota got a question there. The handle is definitely hard to nail because, it'll be hard. But again, Dakota, got a question for you. Do you think, for example, that if that spherical or that element that's going to travel were entrapped a little bit and given a channel to follow, and you can't see it, but you can actually sense it, and you actually you shroud it just a little bit to kind of hide the fact that it's out there in space? Would that help? I think that might be a pretty good clue here. That's a good question, and thank you for the concern. Handle is definitely, and the handle might be, that's the one that's going to be the real, to me, the pivot point of this whole process. If we have an element that's kind of transitory and moves and does the job, whether it's in a tight restriction area or not, that's one thing. But again, to have that handle work would be really, really interesting in terms of getting it together. So, I don't know. Let's see. I think it would. You think it would? You think the actual track itself would be kind of neat to work with? An actual hidden track of some sort where you can't see it's obvious, but it's in there, and it begins to move both horizontally and vertically? That could be cool. I thought about that this morning when I was going through some of the sketches and prepping this program to see if that would actually function very well. So that's not bad. So let me just do this. If we're looking at that, let's say we have, let me get this back out here. Let's say we did this, and we had a series of things. Let's say we did this, and we had an element that is, that if we look at let's look at the front view here, front elevation. If I come back in and do this, and bring that down, and actually bring that down, and start here. Let's do this. Let's get this pen to work. There it is. If that starts there, and then this becomes my center line here, and my center line here, that vertical, got it? Let's see if that works okay. Hope we can see that okay. There it is, and there it is. But if I project that over, somehow, we have this shape doing this. It's almost parabolic. There it is. Had to work here. Now we project that through. This is home base here. This is where this whole thing starts. Let's do this. So this is where that would start, which brings it over here. But as opposed to being exposed, it sits inside this channel. And then as it moves, it does this. It travels back and forth, and it gets to that station, and it gets to that station. So there's a moment of travel right there. So it's that center line to that, to that, to that. Now that'd be a little bit on the wide side, but let's look at that for just a moment here. If that comes in and does that, all right? Now the other way of looking at that is just a very simple little thumbnail sketch is this. Let's do this. So we have that. And we have that. But yeah, there's an aperture in here that does this. And inside that aperture, you have this, this, and this. And if we build on that, let me just do this. This is all premature, obviously. There's the actual shroud itself. That's the actual cavity. Let's kind of ink this in. That's the actual cavity. Now, if we build on that, now we have this. Which now gives you this, this, and this. And all that sits inside. Now this might have crown to it. There's my center line of that portion here. That could have a little bit of a detent in it of some sort where you actually come around and grip that thing. And then a little bit of parabolic insert in it that does the following. And out of that you grow a handle. So let me just do this. And again, let's fill this in. Draw on here. This is the channel it sits in. It also gives you the ability to kind of rotate up and rotate down. And at the same time, when you turn this thing in the other view, for example, and now it does this. There's a little parabolic insert here, looking at the other view. This is now home base here. Point 2, point 3. Center line of travel, center line, center line, center line of travel, which now gives you that attitude, which now gives you that attitude. And also, comparing the form, that, to that, to that, to that. And again, it's just going to, just one little area here. It's going to knock this in. This is all negative. So there it is, both in the horizontal or the vertical and both in the horizontal. That's the channel we're looking at here. That makes sense, guys? What do you think? Well, I can't believe how much that thing, whoa, all right. Whoa, she is right there. Okay. What do you think, guys? Got it? Let's see, one more time here. That's the actual channel here. And inside that, channel, Again, a little bit of recess back there for grip. That's it. You know what? What do you think? Is it 3 different heads or one head? That's one head. That'll be that one head right there will actually travel inside that channel. Does that make sense, Dakota? Well, I don't know what's wrong with it. They're really tilting these things out there, man. It's incredible. Does that make sense? The idea is to have this whole idea. Let's just do an elevation here, front elevation. You will have, this is the actual form itself. Maybe it's just a little bit more rounded, like so. There's the actual form. Inside that, there's a channel. And inside that channel, we have one home base that does this. That one unit will sit right there. And that thing will rotate that way and that way. It's just one head moving right across the entire form. I love the compact. Yeah, I do too. The more compact the thing gets, the better it is. Maybe this is it. Maybe it's just a sphere. That has a malleable grip in it. And that maybe a little bit deeper. Then that channel sits from there to there. I mean, that could be really cool. Just a sphere. Why not? Interesting. It's very compact. Now, if we had to, we could take that shape, and I'm going to do, I should have brought that down. This is where the actual head would fit, right? Here's that channel, and then through here like that. It does that. There's the actual piece, but there's a shroud that still covers it up. You don't see it. It's actually a mystery. The thing will sit in there, and that becomes the actual visit head. And this is the part that moves. This guy is critical. That's the actual unit. There's a channel, hidden, but you don't see it. Now, maybe that's a little bit more elongated. That could be kind of neat, too, but it just does this. Interesting. Why not? Good stuff, Dakota. Thank you. How about you, Antares? Any comment there at all about this? One head that moves just in a certain sequence here to really kind of get the job done here. What do you think, gang? Really good feedback here. Much appreciated here. I don't know. It might be an interesting set of circumstances to work with here. Let's just see if we did something here like this. What if we did this? If we went this way, picked up a center line and just extended this. I'm running out of juice here on this thing. And out of that, you've got this parabolic handle. And it's very soft. And out of that, you've got this hidden channel in here that has that one unit that sits in there like so. Center line of pivot. Center line of pivot. Wow, that could be cool. Let's see, Antares, I think it would be helpful to see not just the design of the tool itself, but the concept sketches of it being used. Yeah, that could be kind of neat too. Very interesting. So I get some hand gestures in there. Good deal. Well, what do you think, gang, overall? I mean, that's just a very quick status report about, I think, some of the things we're moving toward. Certainly beats, I think, part of this process we're looking at here. To have this thing buried inside a channel of some sort. Could be interesting to work with, and I've got some homework to do between now and next week. But I'm just, as I said today, I just wanted to pause the whole process for a moment and say, okay, this is where we are. We've got the material sent out there. We're looking for feedback. We've had some pretty far-stretching situations like we showed you in some of the initial sketches here. Let's do this. Was that one somewhere in here? There it is. This is where we started. Let me put this down. We'll cover this up a little bit here so we can see it. That's where we started. And that whole idea of having this whole head working together here as it moves, and then some sort of a malleable accompanying hand form to get this thing to function would be really cool. So cannot thank you enough again. As I said, pardon me for being redundant, but I didn't want to go any further with any sketch work until we found out what was taking place from the point of view of their end coming back to us. Just really unique in terms of putting that all together. So the status is, I think it's healthy. I think we've got a good format to work with. I think some of the themes we're dealing with, the innovations are really good, that it's a malleable piece. It's adjustable. It's not set. It can be moved horizontally and vertically to kind of function both ways, and do some really interesting things about how the hand process works and how this tool will start to look like. And I think the thing that I'm excited about now, very much more inspired by, is it definitely looks like it's going to be a game breaker if we come up with a very condensed, multifunctional piece that really does the job for us, it's going to be really, really unique, I think, in terms of, yes, it's innovative, it's adaptable, it does some neat things, it's unique and it's new, and it's a disruptive situation that certainly beats this guy to no end. This could be really interesting in terms of looking at how that whole process can become compacted in one certain system, whether we go horizontally with it, in this case, or like we did the other day, where we actually go in there and go vertical with it. It can work either way. And I think that's the idea behind it all. And Terrence Venom, the last sketch you did on the far right is equally far right. This guy right here, that's pretty interesting. Yeah, I think that could be interesting in terms of putting it all together here. So one of the things that might be looking at here is this. Open that up. That could be interesting, how that whole process. This is all, pardon me here for a moment. That's a different material. Maybe it comes out on top and just gives you a little more of a grip system to work with here. That's one process. There's your center line. There's the center line. Indication of some sort. That could be an interesting package. Why not? Yeah, that's nice. That could be kind of interesting here. Now, one last note. In addition to the things we're talking here about review here and status report today, I've also going to take an occasion this week, for example, the rest of the week, to go into some biomimicry. I'm going to start looking at the physical world in terms of maybe aquatic world, insect world, etc. What's out there that does this kind of stuff? If we can find something that does that and adapts, to use that as a tool, for example, or an element of a springboard or the theme start, could be really reinforce this whole idea. So we'd have empathy to begin the process, which is really interesting form development, a new secret of illuminating ideation stuff. Then secondly, if we have that whole empathy thing backed up by a biomimicry piece that say, well, in the physical world, this insect or this element in the aquatic world does the following. First thing I thought of, for example, is octopi, how they can change color, how they can change form, how they can, that's a little bit elaborate. But carpenter bees, yeah, that's drilled perfect hole. Yeah, they do. I've got that on my list too, of the bee studies and so how that whole process works. And I think the idea of a bee, the bee setup is interesting too, Dakota, because when you look at them, they've got head, thorax, and abdomen. It's what we're talking about. We've got a head, a thorax, and combine the thorax with the abdomen. You've got that insect to kind of give you the impetus to prove that the empathy piece really functions. So now that's going to be exciting. This is really great fun. And again, Antares 9636, I think that's what it was. If you're still out there, let me know if you're still on. I really want to thank you for the time to join us here today. And these are very lousy sketches, just a little love rough. And I don't know whether they're distorted. They don't look distorted here, but they look distorted on the screen. So my apologies, gang. It's going to be a lot of fun, so I'm going to hold my breath this week and make sure we get some good feedback here. I'll be talking back and forth with these individuals, but I'm sure we'll get some good feedback, and I'm confident, knowing the individuals that I'm contacting out there in industry. They're very reliable, great people. The director of design is a former student of mine. I've worked with him in the past. He knows what the idea is behind it all. Just interesting how to put it all together. It's just a great thought. Yeah, thank you very much, Antares. It's just getting things down to, and again, I'm very honest today. When I came in this morning to the office, and I've got to be very straightforward and very succinct. Not a lot of development time. Let's get a progress report. Let's let the audience know where we are. Then from there, we get the information between now and next Wednesday. We'll add to it. If we don't get any information back, I've got something planned that I think you'll enjoy seeing. So it's just very simple. I appreciate it, Dakota. It only comes about because people like yourself and Antares and other individuals join forces with us. And those of you who are viewing, I hope you've enjoyed this. It's a very intriguing project. I think it's going to be the situations that I think, I said this last week and I'll say it again. My intent here, working with all of you as a design team, you're part of the team. Our intent is to literally look at this thing. This is going to do to the hand drill marketplace what the iPhone did to the telephone. Should be that disruptive. It should be that unique and new. And let's hope. And if we don't accomplish that, then it's my fault, not yours. I'm looking forward to it. And again, I have a lot of confidence in the people I'm working with. They're a great gang. They're highly innovative. They're wide open. No is not a part of the vocabulary. Maybe sometimes, but not an awful lot. So it's just been really a lot of fun. So thank you very much, Dakota. Great comment about the bee systems. Dakota, thank you. Antares. Thank you for the very kind. Keep up the great work, both of you. You're doing some neat stuff, gang. I'm looking forward to having you come in. Send me some work you've got done together here, and let's take it from there. So, and if you have any thoughts on this thing, let me know. I mean, this is not a situation where I've got sole proprietorship here. This is a team effort. If you see something that can be adjusted or changed along with the whole idea of being disruptive with it, let's do it and see what kind of results we get. So, fun stuff, gang. So I really appreciate it. And then 9636, if you're still with me from India, thank you so much for joining. Tell your friends we're active on every Wednesday if we possibly can on the stream on YouTube. And thank you for finding us. And above all else, we'll keep you tuned next week. Let's hope we get some good feedback. And I'll be in touch with everybody next week. We'll start all over again. Hopefully, with some feedback about here's what we're going to attack. This is what likes and dislikes were. And hopefully, take it from there. So, in closing, I cannot help but state the fact that, gang, it's just great to have you on board. I'm so grateful for the fact that you've joined forces with me every Wednesday. Great input. It helps to motivate me. It helps to kind of give me an idea of where you're going and the direction you're going to take. And if you have anything you want to send me along, for example, for notation or change or any input, I'll be happy to help. I'll make the time to do so. Take a moment to please visit my website, drcontrast.com. There's some things coming in. We're going to start making some changes to that and update a little bit, so that's going to be on the record to get that taken care of. And also, good news too, after this project's done, we've got that architectural program coming in Empathy. We've got some park designs coming along. I'm also going to show you, for example, if we get a chance to, maybe an off week. I just finished up a piece for a client, a very prominent client. It's a consignment piece. You will love it, I hope. I just finished it up this morning, so I'm going to save it and show it to you maybe next week if we can. So all the very best, gang. Have a great week. Enjoy yourself. Stay tuned for next week. We'll hopefully have the status report in and start to take off on some really good thumbnail sketches and concept sketches based on next week's program. And I always make this comment to drop me a note at my email address at jim@drcontrast.com. Neat stuff to work with here. And again, many thanks to all of you. And I always close with this. It's the most important part of the whole day. Simply this. Never forget to dare to remember, to dare to be great, because you are. All the best, gang. We'll see you next Wednesday. Take care.